Hello, back again. My name is Daniel Daly, and welcome back to the Basketball Soapbox as we're continuing our questions for each team in the NBA. We're still in the Eastern Conference, going to just be moving across the road for my last team that I talked about, Brooklyn Nets. If you want to check that, check the video out on the page. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this. As we continue on, we're going to be looking at the New York Knicks. Now, New York Knicks, there's buzz back again in the Garden. And it hasn't been like this for a long time, probably since Melo was there early on with that team that won 50 games with Mike Woodson. And it's been crazy for the New York Knicks. Now, looking at their history, it has been exactly 24 years since they made a conference finals. That was year, 2000. Yeah, year 2000. Since they made the conference finals, they lost to Indiana with Reggie Miller closing out the Garden in that series. And that was sad times for the New York Knicks. And since then, since 24 years ago, since they made the conference finals, and 25 since they made the finals, the New York Knicks have only had 6 winning seasons. For a big media market team, for a team that has money and spends money and goes after guys and has gone through so many eras, right? You look at the Isaiah Thomas era, you look at the Larry Brown era, you look at the Phil Jackson era, which was a hilarious time as a Celtics fan. Looking at Phil Jackson destroy the New York Knicks and seeing just all what they've had to gone through, trying to lure the big free agents, trying to get the big name coaches, trying to do everything. They also had Mike D'Antoni. But continuing on, looking at this New York Knicks team who hasn't made it since then, that's my question. That's my question for the New York Knicks. Do the New York what's going on? Do the New York Knicks have enough to make the Eastern Conference Finals, let alone the NBA Finals? There has just been a cap on this team for years now, trying to make it into the playoffs, let alone advancing 2 rounds. And it just looks like something always happens, especially with all the injuries last year with Randall and Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson, and it just continues. This team has revamped itself, has become the Villanova Knicks for a little bit before trading Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle to Minnesota for Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, I understand why you do that. You want to stretch the floor for Jalen Brunson and have him control that situation with Cat, work that pick and pop situation to death, spread the floor, have options there. And if Karl-Anthony Towns, this is a good place for him. I know Rudy Gobert has been behind it. He's behind Rudy Gobert on defense and stuff like that. Minnesota overall was a great defensive team. The New York Knicks, with Bridges and Anunoby, Josh Hart, they're going to be the linchpins on defense and try to make everything work, funnel things to Karl-Anthony Towns and see if he can block the shot, right? And see if he can do that and pick up his intensity on the defensive end. That's perfect for him. He's not the lead dog on his team. Doesn't have to be. And with Jalen Brunson in his stellar season since coming to New York and just putting on a show there, top 5 MVP voting, and you're adding, it's the big risk, right? Because you're kind of changing your culture there when you bring in Karl-Anthony Towns. You take your linchpin off and you bring in Karl-Anthony Towns, you lose Randall, you lose Dante DiVincenzo, kind of the essence of what that team was becoming, but they still have Tibbs as coach. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic between Tibbs and Karl-Anthony Towns again. I know they kind of didn't see eye to eye in Minnesota, and to take a gamble like that and bring in Karl-Anthony Towns, who is a divisive figure. I'm not the biggest Karl-Anthony Towns fan. A lot of people aren't, but some people like his shooting, some people like his game and just feel like he needed the right situation to showcase that. And in New York, where they're going to be watching every night, checking the box score, watching your performance, watching your attitude, seeing how you perform on the court, is going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting dynamic to see if Karl-Anthony Towns can raise his level. Now, looking at this roster, right, and looking at what this team could be with Anunoby, with Bridges, with Jalen Brunson, with Josh Hart, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do in the Eastern Conference. They were hampered by injuries and lost to Indiana in the second round last year. Unfortunate. And I remember just them, the New York Knicks, I remember when they had Melo and they lost to Paul George, led Indiana Pacers in the second round. And it's like, that was a good chance for them to get, I think that's the year they won 50 games as well. But it was just a good chance for them to get to a conference finals. And the New York Knicks have not been there. And if the New York Knicks get to the conference finals with this team, New York Knicks fans are going to be insufferable, right? And they have every right to be, for a team that hasn't been there in 24 years and have any measure of success and has been in the dog days of the NBA only having 6 winning seasons since the year 2000. That's tough. And to see this team scratch, claw, and actually have a plan, Leon Rose and those guys in the New York Knicks actually have a plan, stick to it, and execute it to this degree. Um, Kudos to the Knicks for doing that, because there was a long period of time there where we didn't even know if they were going to be able to do that, if they were going to be a competent franchise. And now to see them turn this around and actually build a team that's competitive, actually have some positive buzz and not some negative buzz where you're hearing about Charles Oakley getting pushed in the stands, or James Dolan, their owner, or anything like that. There's nothing like that. It's all positive for the New York Knicks. Everything's looking up for the New York Knicks. Orange and blue skies, as Stephen A. Smith would say, right? But the New York Knicks, can they get to an Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals? They give their best chance here, especially adding those wing defenders. Looking at the opposition, looking at the Boston Celtics, who have all those wings, looking at the Bucks, looking at the Philadelphia 76ers, you kind of need that guy to kind of pull those guys, Embiid, Brook Lopez, Giannis even potentially, away from the basket. Karl Anthony Towns can potentially do that. And with Jalen Brunson just playing downhill 24/7, getting to his spots, floor spacing and all that, they have a really good chance. They're going to be in they're going to be in the semifinals to at least get to the second round. And we'll see who they match up against in that second round. But it's like, can they get there? That is the biggest thing for the New York Knicks, and they've been scratching and clawing for the past couple of years, building it, starting a couple of years ago with Julius Randle when he finally got them to the playoffs. Unfortunately, they lost to the Atlanta Hawks, but just continue to build off of that and not go backwards. And this is a step that can potentially go backwards, that Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo trade for Karl Anthony Towns. It could potentially blow up in their face, but I understand why they did it. Now, is it going to work? We'll find out, man. That's my question for the New York Knicks, man. If you want to see what I talked about with the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets, check out those videos on the page. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help this brother out with this page. And my next team will be the Toronto Raptors in the Atlantic Division. Thank you.